The microwave clock read 6:17 in the evening when my entire life split down the middle. I was standing at the granite island in our kitchen, carefully pulling apart a warm rotisserie chicken because my left knee had been aching all afternoon. The dishwasher was humming in the background. My reading glasses were resting on top of my head, and a half-empty bag of salad sat beside a bottle of ranch dressing. It was the most ordinary Tuesday imaginable. Then my husband walked through the back door, and my younger sister was following right behind him. The first detail that caught my attention was not that they arrived together, but that my sister was still clutching her purse tightly against her side. She had visited my home hundreds of times before, always kicking her shoes off near the entryway and raiding my refrigerator without asking. That night, she stood 3 feet inside the kitchen like a terrified guest waiting for an exit strategy. When I asked what was going on, my husband set his keys on the counter, took a heavy breath, and announced that my sister was pregnant. For 2 confusing seconds, I assumed she had come to us for help because her life had been a chaotic mess since her divorce less than a year ago. She had been struggling with finances, car problems, and landlord disputes, and I had spent months helping her pull her life together. But then my husband added that she was carrying twins, and he looked me straight in the eye before dropping the real bomb. He told me that those babies were his. Shock is a strange phenomenon, because it does not always trigger a dramatic outburst. Instead of throwing something or screaming, I found myself staring blankly at a small red sauce stain on the cuff of his blue dress shirt. He pulled a thick manila envelope from under his arm and slid it across the island, informing me that he had already filed for divorce. Printed across the top in bold black letters was my full name, reducing 18 years of marriage down to a cold stack of paperwork. My sister began to cry, whispering that she was sorry, which instantly irritated me because I realized I was still expected to manage her emotional comfort. My husband stepped between us, shielding her and claiming she did not need any added stress during her delicate condition. When I opened the envelope, he tapped the table and muttered his favorite phrase, telling me not to make a scene. He reminded me that he was 49 years old and desperately wanted the family I had failed to give him. There was the familiar wound he loved to reopen. For 8 long years, every failed fertility attempt, every negative pregnancy test, and every heartbreaking holiday had been framed as my personal failure. We had started trying when I was 36, enduring endless specialist appointments, morning blood draws, and painful hormone injections stored right next to our orange juice. After my second miscarriage, at 11 weeks, I could not even walk down the baby aisle at the grocery store without breaking down. At first, my husband grieved alongside me, but over time his sadness curdled into quiet resentment. He would make passive-aggressive comments at family gatherings about how other couples were just luckier, or mutter that his mother would never get grandchildren from us. Once, when I told him I needed a break from the brutal fertility treatments, he accused me of giving up easily. I accepted his hollow apologies back then, mostly because I was remarkably good at forgiving people before they ever changed their behavior. Now he stood in our kitchen beside my younger sister, looking almost triumphant as he pointed out that 8 years with me produced nothing, while she gave him twins on the first try. He looked me in the eye and declared that he had simply married the wrong sister. That sentence cut deep into my chest, but I remained completely silent as I picked up a pen, signed only the page acknowledging I had received the papers, and refused to surrender any of my financial rights or property. I walked upstairs, pulled my suitcase out of the closet, and began packing my clothes while my husband followed me from room to room. He kept offering unsolicited explanations, casually mentioning that my sister would be moving into our house immediately so she could have stability. My hands froze over my sweaters as I realized she was taking over the home I had spent 12 years decorating. I zipped my bag, told him to enjoy the house, and drove away without looking back. I checked into an extended-stay hotel near the highway, where heartbreak felt remarkably tedious and unglamorous. My knee throbbed from the drive, the hotel pillow was far too soft, and I realized I had forgotten my phone charger in the chaos. I cried in the tiny bathroom for 4 minutes, washed my face with lukewarm water, and ordered a bowl of soup. Later that night, my husband called his mother to deliver his big news, but her reaction was entirely different from what he expected. When he proudly announced that my sister was carrying his twins, his mother stayed completely silent before asking if I had ever told him the truth. His voice shifted as he demanded to know what she was talking about, but she simply told him to ask his wife and listen carefully for once in his life. My phone lit up 9 times before midnight, followed by a barrage of angry text messages demanding to know what I had said to his mother, and accusing me of playing manipulative games. What my husband had conveniently managed to forget was a discovery I made 3 years earlier while sorting through old medical bills in our home office. Deep inside an old folder from our fertility clinic, I had found his lab results showing severely low sperm count and poor motility. Our specialist had explicitly explained that natural conception was nearly impossible for us and recommended advanced procedures. But my husband had been so deeply embarrassed by the diagnosis that he completely shut down. Shortly after receiving those results, I overheard him at a family barbecue telling his relatives that our fertility struggles were mostly my issue. When I confronted him in the car on the way home, he casually brushed it off, asking why it mattered whose numbers were worse as long as we were a team. I chose to protect his fragile ego for years, absorbing the silent blame from his family because I loved him. And his mother only learned the truth when I broke down in tears in her kitchen one afternoon. The next morning, I hired a sharp divorce attorney named Denise, who made it very clear that I was under no obligation to give up my home or savings. When we audited our joint bank accounts, we discovered thousands of dollars in hidden money transfers to my sister over the previous several months. My husband had been secretly funding her lifestyle while I was cutting back on personal expenses, but my attorney advised me to keep quiet until we had all our evidence lined up in court. Late that evening, I received a surprise text message from my sister's ex-husband asking to meet immediately. We met at a local coffee shop the following morning, where he sat across from me looking exhausted and held out his phone. He revealed that he and my sister had secretly hooked up 3 months ago during a brief attempt at reconciliation, placing the encounter squarely within the exact time frame of her conception. He showed me text messages where my sister admitted she was unsure who the father was, revealing that she had never taken a paternity test before jumping into my husband's arms. Armed with this realization, I called my sister and forced her to meet me at a quiet diner. When I placed the printed text messages on the table, all the color drained from her face, and she quietly confessed that she was not completely sure who the biological father actually was. She admitted that my husband had convinced her our marriage was already over, feeding her lies about us being glorified roommates just so he could manipulate her into his bed. She broke down in tears, begging me not to ruin her new life, but I simply stood up and walked away. My attorney immediately blocked my husband's desperate attempts to liquidate our savings, locking down our assets while he tried to smear my reputation by telling mutual friends that I was bitter and unhinged. By Sunday evening, my mother-in-law called to inform me that my husband was bringing my sister over to her house to officially announce the pregnancy to the extended family. She quietly invited me to attend, dropping a subtle hint that my husband had no idea who else was going to show up. I pulled into her driveway at 6 o'clock sharp, took a deep breath to steady my nerves, and walked inside to finally reclaim my narrative. Hit that like button, subscribe please.